Hello, everybody. I'm Bonnie from Juicernet. This is one of my great team members, Carly, that will be joining us. And we have one of the greatest privileges of having an interview with Linda Kordich and her husband, Carl. Linda Kordich Loveday, now married to her. You may recognize the name Kordich. For those of you that are in the juicing industry, she was the wife and the partner of Jay Kordich, and known to many over the years as the Juice Man. Jay passed away in 2017 at the age of 93, but she is continuing on that message as she has spent, and we're going to hear Carl too, almost 4 decades teaching the healing power of juice therapy and plant-based lifestyle. She has written over 8 books on juicing since Jay's passing and is quite passionate about reaching people to inspire them to transform their diets, just as Jay did. And now Carl, filling in, doing that as well. Jay's teachings are not just priceless, they are timeless. In 1992, she helped Jay co-write The Juice Man's Power of Juicing, and it became a New York Times bestseller with over 2 million books sold to date. So let's get started and learn a little bit more about health and wellness. And before we start asking you some questions, Linda, can I ask you and Carl, tell us a little bit about you, because we hear so much about Jay, and now you're following right there with Linda in those footsteps as well.
Well, Bonnie, Linda's going to take over on that note just because I pay her to do this, to say these good things. So, Linda, give them a little bit of a background, how we met, all that good stuff.
Well, just briefly, I met Carl in I think it was about 1.5 years after Jay left this beautiful world. And we met because we were both doing some, I guess we call it SEVA, which is sort of selfless service.
Well, Linda was volunteering. I was one of her wards.
He was one of my wards.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's a vegan chef. I'm a vegan chef, and my book, Live Food Side Bodies, is just a beautiful vegan book that Jay and I wrote. This is the last book that Jay wrote with me. And so we paired up together. He moved to Wisconsin, where I was living at the time. Northern Wisconsin, by the way, is very cold up there. But we had a little meditation group up there, and we were cooking for them on the weekends, and it was really a wonderful experience. So as we got to know each other more and more, I realized, oh my gosh, are you telling me you were a consultant for many, many wealthy people? You taught them juicing. You ran a juice bar and a raw food restaurant? I couldn't believe it. So we started realizing we had all these parallels in our lives, and he was so much fun to be with. But here I married a man 32 years older than myself, and now I'm marrying a man 20-something years younger. I don't like that one, So it's always better to marry the older guy.
She dipped her toes in both pools, Bonnie.
So I was kind of reluctant about that. But a couple years later, after Jay left, we got married, and now we teach together, and we have just a wonderful, wonderful, joyful, fun relationship. And I will tell you, he not only parrots Jay, as a lot of people don't like to hear him say, because he's such a great teacher. He really has taken this teaching to an entirely new level. And that's why I love to teach with him, because I like to teach more on the spiritual ends of why we want more fruits and vegetables in our life, and why juicing is so important. And then he teaches more of the real nitty gritty, the real more scientific aspects of why juice therapy is so valuable. And I really believe that, just as you said earlier, Bonnie, before we went on the air, that you're working in behalf of your beloved late husband, and both Jay and I feel the same way about Jay. We feel that
he even called me Jay half the time.
We feel that he's helping us too.
Yeah.
I take it as a compliment.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun together, and we teach well together too.
Yeah, and what Linda didn't mention is I was very ill when I met her. I was actually diagnosed with a terminal illness. So even all that I knew about raw food and about juicing wasn't at the level that Linda knew. So she knew about fast juicing, and I was kind of in the world of cold press juicing, bottling juices, doing raw food, and not really knowing the correct teachings of juice therapy, which is a whole different level of juicing in itself. So Linda brought me basically from the brink of death to where I am today. Through correct juice combinations, using the correct juicer, drinking all the juice fresh, and
also incorporating a lot of
it changed my life.
A lot of organic fruits into his life. He was suffering from what would you, kidney failure and Lyme disease. So it was really serious. And he was in a wheelchair for a couple of years. And I mean, it was a big deal. But by the time I met him, he was just kind of coming out of the wheelchair, but still very ill. And a lot of it has to do with trauma in your life, unresolved emotional and mental challenges that we face. So, you know, love is the most powerful force there is. So. Yeah.
Well, I can't tell you how honored we truly are.
Oh, we are too.
Two of the best juicing experts ever.
Thank you.
And for those of you that are listening to this, make sure you stay tuned to the end because you're going to hear about a new certification course that they have written that's going to be available. I'm going to have them explain that at the end. But if you guys are okay, why don't we get started with some of our questions that I think even our listeners hopefully are interested in hearing as well. So let's start with trying to understand what consumer behaviors are driving fresh juice sales right now.
You answer that.
Well, you know, we've seen a big shift in people's consumption of juice, especially like after Anthony William, you know, who really brought celery juicing, you know, mono juicing to the forefront. So you see a lot of people getting into juicing at any cost. So whether it's bottled, whether it's, you know, cold pressed, whether it's even done in a blender.
Or smaller tinctures.
And so no one has really covered juicing the way that Jay did and the way that Linda does now. And I just assist her with more of the analytical stuff, but truly juicing at a level of recognizing juice as a life force based nutritional change in your diet is really the apex, and we haven't really come there. The consumer today is more focused on ease and convenience, and juicing can sometimes be the opposite of that. It can be a little difficult to do. It's something that a lot of busy professionals can't do on a daily basis, and it's something we want to actually drive and change inside that market by reintroducing what Jay introduced to the market in LA back in the 60s, which is the fresh juice bar, which is just like you would go into a cocktail bar and you sit down and you receive a glass of fresh juice. Right now, what you have is more, you know, the bottled consumption of juice. You have a lot of packaged, you have a lot of cleanses, things like that. And that seems to be driving the market. The easier packaged form of juices and the claims that are actually misrepresented in the marketplace today.
Yeah. And also, I watched the trend. You know, I grew up in a vegetarian juicing family from age 12 on. So that's how, by the time I was 25 and I met Jay, bingo. I mean, we were married like the next day. We were on the mission, you know, so I had already known so much about juicing. But in the last, 5 decades, what I've seen, especially right around the year 2000, was a huge trend out of juicing and into blending, because the Vitamix people were saying, well, you want a total juicer, and that's the blender because you want to keep the fiber. We can get into that later. But there was that was a very difficult wave to overcome. But I've noticed, and I think Carl has too, that in the last probably 3 or 4 years, there's been that the trend is coming back to juicing because blending is not the same as juicing. Yeah.
Right. Great. Good, Carly.
Okay. So when people say detox, what do they mean exactly?
Well, I mean, it's really a complicated word. What we're really talking about is getting rid of waste matter. Waste matter is what we're trying to get out of our body so we can start to feel alive again and start to feel like our cells are alive and our blood is clean and our liver and all of our internal organs are working properly and all of our glands are working properly. And the only way to do that is to have clean blood. And the only way to do that is to dump waste. So detox is sort of just kind of like a buzzword, but what we're really talking about is getting rid of the waste matter. Yeah. And that can be done very beautifully and achieved well through juicing.
You couldn't have said it better, you know, and as far as the waste matter goes, that's where the toxins are coming from. You know, anytime you eat a cooked food, what you're doing is you're consuming a bevy of dead minerals, or what we call inorganic elements. Those inorganic elements cause cell toxicity. And juicing, when done fresh and done with the right juicer, can remove those toxic elements.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Great. Yeah. Okay. What are some of the biggest lies or the exaggerations that you hear in the wellness world about juicing?
Lies. Well, I mean, on a negative, oh my gosh, yes. In a positive way, it's all good because anybody that turns the juicer on and they're juicing on a daily basis are going to say wonderful things about juicing because their life's going to change. But the negative things are, oh my God, there's too much sugar. What are you doing? Wasting all that produce. All that produce, the pulp is in the back of the juicer, and now this juice is full of all kinds of, potential bacteria. Why would you be doing that? You're going to get diabetes, yada, yada, yada. There's so much negative stuff out there. And the bottom line is all of it is a total lie and marketing fabrication.
That's true. I think sugar is the biggest myth out there. And we're going to talk, one of the questions that we saw earlier that you were going to ask us is about that exact thing, which is fiber. Fiber plays a key role, but the right kind of fiber, Bonnie and Carly, what people tend to talk about is fiber is just a general term. There's two parts to fiber. There's insoluble fiber and there's soluble fiber. Soluble fiber feeds the body. Insoluble fiber does not. It is a waste. And like Jay used to say, it's all about nutrient density per calorie, not calorie counts and how you manage your diet in that fashion. It's all about getting the nutrient dense foods, and that's what you get from a freshly prepared juice that has no insoluble fiber, but is packed with soluble fiber. And inside that soluble fiber lies that life force, which we call enzymatic activity.
Things that nobody hears about. That's
nobody. Yeah, they have most people have no idea what enzymes are and how valuable they are and integral they are, and to keeping us disease-free and living a long, long life.
That's good. Well, you're proving it, and so did Jay, living as long as he did.
Yeah.
What's your rule on fruit-heavy juices versus green-heavy?
Heavy juices versus
fruit heavy juices versus
like
green heavy juices.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear the word fruit. Yeah, I thought that's what it was.
Our speakers aren't the greatest.
Our speaker. Oh, okay. So, well, okay. I'll talk about the fruit and Carl will talk about the greens. Okay. Yeah. But see, I'm a major fruit addict. Okay. Fruit is the most under promoted, demonized, experience of food that I've ever experienced in my life. I have seen so much negative publicity about fruit. I can't tell you in the last 25 years, every single person we've ever talked to say, oh, I don't want to get diabetes. Oh, no, if I eat too much fruit, if I juice fruit especially, I'm going to get, diabetes and my blood sugar is going to spike. I'm thinking to myself, what are you talking about? Fruit is the most perfect food for man. What do gorillas eat? What do monkeys eat? What do chimpanzees eat? Those are the animals that are closest to our digestion. We have 32 feet from our mouth all the way down to our, and we need these high fiber, water-rich fruits in our bodies. This is what gives us amazing energy, beautiful skin, and a tremendous amount of joy and exuberance and gratitude for life. Fruit is the flower of the tree. Fruit is the flower of the bush, and it's like a gift from God. That's one of the most important foods we can eat. Okay, so I'll give you an example. First of all, I have perfect blood sugar. Jay had perfect blood sugar. Every time he went to the doctor, it was like, Jay, your blood pressure's 120/70 again. And your blood sugar's perfect. He was always just so darn healthy. Why? He used to eat about 4 pounds of fruit a day, whether they were tangerines or oranges or grapefruits or blueberries or strawberries or whatever it was, or nectarines, oh my God, or mangoes or pineapples. The man was a fruit lover. Why? Because he knew that all the late great master teachers were teaching this. This is how we stay really healthy. So I'll share a story with you, just one recent story. Carl and I were over at the meditation center in Chicago. It's called Science of Spirituality. It's a beautiful center, and every weekend we make juice for everybody, right? Of course. So one of the men that was part of the safety team came into this small little area where we're juicing, and he said, Carl, I'm diabetic, and I really, really want to drink your juice, but I'm afraid it's going to spike my blood sugar. So Carl said, well, okay, I tell you what, I'm going to make you some freshly made orange juice. I'm going to peel the orange. I'm not going to cut it in half like most of us do, and you just put it in a reamer or electronic. That is sugar water. Jay Kordich, my late husband, the juice man, always said that in almost every lecture he made. When you make juice like that, it's like pure sugar, but what you need are those bioflavonoids, those magical nutrients that we haven't even been able to identify yet, except called bioflavonoids. There's probably 300 or 400 different kinds of bioflavonoids in there. So you just peel the skin of the orange or the grapefruit, or the tangerine or the pomelo, and then you juice it that way. And it comes out like a 50-50 bar, like this beautiful orange Julius. It's nothing like it. So he made it fresh for him. He drank how many ounces? 8 ounces?
He drank 12.
He drank 12 ounces that moment. And since he was a diabetic, he was a
type 2 diabetic. So we were watching his continuous glucose monitor to see if there would be any spikes, and there was none.
None.
And this is typical, because what you're doing is, I got a little example here because I knew we were going to talk about this.
Oh, look at that.
So this orange here, you can see is peeled. And you see we've taken off all the colored skin and left as much of the white pith as we could. Now, two things happen when you freshly juice an orange like this. That white part is filled with enzymes. It's something that cannot be unlocked by a cold press juicer or even masticating juicers.
That's right.
Like these horizontal juicers you see, or some of the other fancier ones that cost a bunch of money. What happens with the centrifugal juicer is it can actually extract the oleic content of the white pith or membrane of that orange. And when you do that, that is what's going to help the blood sugar spike. It's the enzymes in those oils. It is the enzymes in the whole of the orange that are going to help stop the sugar from spiking, because those enzymes are what are behind the soluble fiber, the living soluble fiber, coating the small intestine and allowing the living sugars to pass through as they should. That's how nature intended. Refined sugars can't do that. They become sort of like it's like the difference between a mop, like a jelly substance, rather than like this living, almost like breathing foam that's in these juices. And this is what we want in our juice. That's why it's so important to do things like citrus juices with its pith. And we did the same thing with the cantaloupe right after that. What I did was I served them another 12 ounces, but 12 ounces of cantaloupe juice with its rind intact. And so what happens is, with that rind, you have all these enzymes locked into just beneath the skin of that cantaloupe that are released into the juice with its soluble fiber and help block the blood sugar spike. So certain fruits are better to juice when they're intact with their skin, and if not, you just want to juice a fruit that is less ripe. Linda always promotes the eating of fruits that are actually ripe and water rich, and the juicing of fruits that are less ripe. And that also has to do with enzymatic activity. There's more enzymatic activity in that unripened fruit than in the fruit that has been ripened. And in the fruit that is ripened, you're going to have more of a water richness, right, Linda?
Yeah, and this comes from Jay Kordich, taught for 62 years. He was the master of juicing. He was the greatest living teacher of juice therapy in the world. He was a cancer survivor. That's how he turned from a professional football player to like devoting his entire life to teaching people about juice therapy, because he got well. And when you're really sick and you get well by a certain sort of specific thing that you do, particularly juicing for us, you can't help but share it. So one of the things I wanted to share also about that is that about, fruit is that, people, 99.9% of people, what they say is exactly what we just talked about. Well, I don't want to spike my blood. I'm going to get diabetes. But they're not telling you that they're eating crackers and cookies and chips and, and pasta and all these, simple carbohydrate foods, which are burdening their pancreas, because pancreas has to produce a tremendous amount of enzymes now to digest that food. And it's really putting a burden on the pancreas, which in turn causes us to have an imbalance. So if and the bread too, I mean, this white bread is just crazy. And the heavily cooked foods as well, even high flesh food diets can cause this problem. So why punish us about the fruit when it's the other foods you're eating? You should be thinking, you're right, I'm going to start drinking fresh fruit juice and eating more fruits and give up those simple carbs. But people don't want to do it until they're really in trouble. And I don't blame them, because they have been misled.
Right. Well, I think you answered the next question. I was going to say, what's the biggest thing that influencers on social media get wrong about nutrition? And you just summed it all up there. So why are people promoting differently than what really is the science behind juicing and the true healthiness of it?
Yeah. And the second part of Carly's question about the greens, that's another thing that's misleading that you see coming from these influencers. They talk about green juices, green juices, green juices. the truth of the matter is this: you never want more than 20% of your juice to be green. Jay taught this for years. He knew exactly why. Things like greens can be really too alkalizing. Even how Anthony William teaches celery juicing, that's too much alkalinity. The body is truly striving for neutrality, not alkalinity. The way you fight cancer is not through alkalizing the body, it's through creating neutrality. That's the homeostasis that the body is seeking. And the way that you do that is through neutral juices. So Jay's favorite combination with celery was always carrot. And he preferred to do mostly carrot and a little bit of celery, 80-20 at the most, 80% carrot, 20% celery. In some cases, he would 25. Do half and half. If someone needed more electrolytic enzyme action in their bodies, then he would raise the level of the celery. But celery is also not truly a full grain. Parsley is actually, it's like celery's grandfather, right? Celery is derived from parsley. It's a type of parsley. But it's less in the chlorophyll, it's less in the compounds that would cause imbalance in the thyroid, which is the #1 dysfunction in women who are over-consuming green juices, and no one's talking about this. People, back to the sugar issue, think carrots are pure sugar. Linda, you explain it as a wheel. Talk about the spokes in the wheel of these living sugars.
Well, what we teach in a board-certified juicing, therapy course is this is what we teach: a perfect balance. The carrot is the carrier for all of your juice combinations, all of your juice therapy combinations. It's the carrier that carries all these nutrients to the proper pH balance, which is anywhere between 6.8 and 7.2. And when you're talking alkaline at 9, you never want to be there. You want to keep your body in this natural neutral pH. And so carrots are not only going to deliver that natural pH to us, they're also almost identical to the amino acid structure of our human blood. So it's almost like carrot juice is like blood to the human body. The body just goes crazy over it. It's amazing how many people have thrown out the carrot and then they're juicing. Here's a perfect example of what's wrong. I mean, what's not to do. A handful of parsley, a handful of spinach, a handful of kale, a handful of celery, and you just put that in there with a couple of bananas, which is not a good combination, and you blend it up, or you juice it with the bananas, of course, and then you throw the carrot out. And what you should have done was just cut all that in half and done 70-75% of the carrot, because that's what's going to carry all those nutrients in a perfect balanced structure.
Yeah. Yeah. And that next question that you're talking about, the things that influencers tend to teach is adding lime or lemon to every single green juice is the last thing you want to do. What you're going to do is effectively cook the volatile oils that are in those greens, rendering them rancid. The #1 cause of cancer before they started doing these stressor studies was rancidity of foods. That means foods that were cooked or altered in any way.
Oils.
And what limes and lemons do to these greens and other vegetables is they cook their vegetable oils, and they also change the structure, and they diminish the level of enzymatic activity in these greens.
Because the acid burns, acid burns these volatile and delicate compounds in the green and carrot.
Yeah, and they think it preserves the juice or it extracts something from the juice, and nothing could be farther from the truth. It's actually diminishing the juice's value.
Wow, that is information that, because I'm put lemon, if I do a lot of carrot apple, and I'll put a little wedge of lemon in there. But is it just the lemon with the greens that you have that problem with, or can you put like a little wedge?
Any vegetables. You really don't want to mix it. And even apple, that's another topic. Jay always taught red delicious or golden delicious apples with any vegetable combination. Because green apples, Granny Smith, Pippin, these apples are far too acidic. Now, they turn into alkaline ash in the body when you consume them, but the problem is those acids will break down those volatile vegetable oils in the carrot and render them rancid as well. So you don't want to be mixing these acid fruits with vegetables.
So to answer your question, I know this is like, I know this is why it's so important that we teach, because this is not stuff we're just coming up with. This is teachings that Dr. Norman Walker, Dr. Max Gerson, and Jay Kordich, they all taught in the last 100 years, that everybody, because of the internet now, which is a good thing, but there can be some cowboys out there, they just decide, what's going to look good and what's good for them. And then you get 10 or 15 influencers to talk about that. And pretty soon it becomes a teaching. You understand? Yeah. But that's not the right teaching. So to answer your question, yes, you can use lemon in fruits, of course. But we say with greens and carrots not to do that, because they do burn. You can't see it. You wouldn't know it, but the stomach knows it. Bloodstream knows it.
Yeah, and the enzymatic activity denatures. And that's something else no one talks about. I've sat down with enzymologists at health trade shows, and it's amazing, when you turn them on to someone like Dr. Edward Howell, who was the foremost expert of enzymatic activity, did decades-long studies on enzymes and found there was a third or tertiary nature to enzymes. There was a quantum light phase or biophotonic stage in enzymes, which means it's almost like sunlight in a glass. So when you're juicing, you're retrieving that enzymatic activity and consuming it. The problem is that enzymatic activity starts to denature or start to diminish after just 3 minutes.
That's all it takes. Fast juicing is so important.
Yeah. You want that quantum light.
Yeah.
That leads into, Carly, one of my favorite topics that I've been dying to have you share. Go ahead, Carly.
So we're in a world obsessed with cold press. So why use a centrifugal juicer?
Yeah, did you hear the question?
Yeah, why use a centrifugal? The cold press myth, babe. Go.
Oh yeah, okay. Sorry, Carly. It's just your speaker, or I don't know.
It's our speaker.
Speaker, yeah. Okay. So the cold press myth. Okay, we'll try to make it short. First of all, I remember, I don't want to say too much in a negative way, because I love the owners of Kuvings and Tribest and Nama juicers. These are wonderful people. They're great people, but we don't know how this thing got started. But, the evolution of slow juicers started, I think, in the mid 80s with what I think they called it the Green Star.
Yeah.
So Tribest came out with it. You're referring to a slow juicer as both a cold press juicer and a masticating juicer?
They're both.
They're pretty much both the same. One's horizontal, one's vertical.
And most slow juicers aren't cold press, even though they're marketed that way. A cold press would be like the Pure juicer or the old, Norwalk. Yeah. Those kind of juicers that actually have an effective press.
That's cold. The juice that presses it. So
in the commercial world, like a Good Nature.
Yes, a Good Nature we have on our counter.
We have the Hummingbird here in our kitchen. Yeah. Okay. Wonderful people as well. But the thing is that you have the vertical slow juicers, or I don't like to call them cold press because we don't believe they're cold press. Not. We have the vertical juicers, and then also the horizontal, and they both grind up. They have a triturator that slowly turns around, and they love to say, oh, it only, it's really going to preserve the enzymes because it's going so slow, 35 RPMs, right? And even slower sometimes. But the thing is what they're not telling you, there's two big myths. First, I'll talk about the first one. What they're not telling you is it takes 3 to 4 times longer to extract the juice from these slow juicers than it does when you're juicing from a fast juicer. By the time we're done juicing 32 ounces of, let's say, carrot, spinach, celery, apple, and whatever, they're still only 25% through because they have to wait for it to grind and twist and go around. And then the second part, which is really disturbing to me, is they have the audacity, to say, oh, look at this juice. It's got fiber in it. This is so important. You want to be drinking that fiber with the juice. You listen to Jay Kordich's lecture. He'll tell you that's the worst thing you can do is drink juice with fiber because that fiber needs to be chewed. Okay. You can't just be swallowing fiber. The body doesn't know what to do with it. You're going to blow it up. You might as well just blend it, And then, so what happens is they say, oh, and the third one, sorry, there is one more. And the third one is, oh, well, look at how dry the pulp is coming out. It's so dry, but with a fast juicer, all that pulp is so wet back there. Oh yeah, well, we did a test once and we put the slow juicer with the fast juicer, and it came out identical. You know why? Because there was so much pulp in a slow juicer that when you strained the juice twice and you put that wet pulp back in the dry pulp, it came out to be the same. And sometimes I would say, even with the carrots, when you're talking about carrot, the fast juicer was even more effective because one of the things we talk about, which maybe we can talk about some other time, is that the straining basket of a fast juicer has little narrow slits.
I'll show you. I've got a little example right here. Yeah. So what you hear about is mastication with slow juicers. You hear about, oh, it's got a masticator, right? Nothing could be farther from the truth. Nothing can mimic the teeth in our heads. There's nothing like our mouths to actually masticate. What they're doing, like a cold press juicer, like the Norwalk, the Good Nature, or any of these other juicers, like the Pure Juicer. I think the Norwalk is now no longer being sold as far as new. They're pulverizing the pulp, which is the last thing you want to do. It's breaking open every living cell wall of the material that you're juicing. That's the last thing you want to do. A centrifugal juicer has these little shredding blades.
Amazing.
So important. So, and even Dr. Norman Walker, who was, the one who used a so-called masticating cold press juicer, said it in his own books. The key is surface area. So when you shred with these blades inside the centrifugal juicer here, you're creating an elongated shred of pulp. That pulp rolls up the side of this basket, and in centrifugal action, the centrifuge extracts all the juice in just a half a turn of this disc. Just 1/2 a turn. So it's going to render the juice more quickly. It's not going to oxidate it like they say. That's another false
oxidation, right.
That's another false report. There's no oxidation that occurs. Denaturing, the change of the pH in the juice is what makes the enzyme change. The air is not doing that in a fashion through a half of a turn that the juice comes through and into the juice bowl. But you hear all these reports, and there's actually studies that they cite that were paid for by these juicing companies that make the slow juicers. And companies like Breville have fought back, which we love to see. They are able to actually use the term cold in selling and marketing their juicers because they have a study that fights the study that the slow juicers put out, which is there is no heat, there is no friction, and then within a half a turn, that juice is in the juice bowl and in your glass. So there's no oxidation.
Right. That's what I mean. Right. We hear all the time when we talk to people and they call and say, I'm looking for a cold press juicer. And I ask why. And the first thing they say is, well, we don't want our juice heated up. And I'm like, it does not heat up the juice. I mean, as quick as that turns and the product goes through it, there's no way that it could heat it up. But who am I? I needed some experts to help.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up. This is the stuff that makes us crazy because we love humanity. We love people. We don't want to see them being manipulated. And this is exactly what they've been done. They've been manipulated by marketing companies to persuade you to buy their product. But we do not sell the Breville juicer. We do not sell any juicers, for matter of fact. So we like to be free like that, so we can teach, with authenticity and not feeling like we're persuading people to go one way or the other. But the truth is that Jay used to always say, like, the moment that carrot hits the blade, within 1/2 of a turn, that pulp is out the back, the juice is in the glass. Okay. And I can tell you, I have used every juicer, and Carl and I have used for years, and every single slow juicer heats up.
That's right.
Okay? Fast juicers do not heat up. It is a complete and utter fallacy.
And Linda and Jay have collectively over 100 years of experience. And the proof is in the pudding. Yeah. Jay and Linda, well, Jay especially, never promoted a slow juicer or a cold press juicer during his whole career of teaching and going on the road and doing seminars. He always promoted the centrifugal pulp ejecting juicer. The slow juicers, like the original slow juicer, which is the cold press juicer, which was a K&K masticator, along with the Wells press, was around since the 20s and 30s. It's what Dr. Max Gerson used to help Jay get on his juicing journey. But Jay saw what it lacked. And once he studied with Dr. Edward Howell, who was the enzymologist that I cited earlier, he realized that the enzyme was changing by the time you drank that cold press juice or that slow juicer. And that's why he helped develop the modern pulp ejecting centrifugal juicer, because before that, it was just a centrifuge. There was no place for the pulp to go and eject out of the machine.
It was like the Acme Supremerator, if you remember from the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would just spin around.
if you have a small business or any size business and they want to bottle their juice and they say, well, I don't want to use a centrifuge juicer because it's going to take out everything. It's going to separate. It's going to do all those things. How would you answer them, or what kind of juicer they should use?
First of all, it does separate.
Yep.
It does separate.
And there's a reason why.
Yes.
But Linda,
juicers,
Linda, tell Bonnie and tell Carly a little bit more about why you can use a slow juicer for storing and why you can't use a fast juicer.
So we use the Nama slow juicer because, so when we're going to be feeding like 800 people for a weekend, at our center, we use the Hummingbird and we use this Nama juicer because the thing is, yes, it will store longer. You know why? Because it's full of pulp, and pulp helps store juice. So when we want to juice at home or we want to juice like quickly, then we use our pulp ejector or our Breville. But when it comes to serving lots of people, we have to make sure that juice is going to be okay. But it still always separates. It doesn't matter what juicer you're using.
Yeah, right. we use them all depending on the application.
That's true too.
With the cold pressed juice, we usually like those if we're going to be freezing something for someone, even though, it's not the best kind of juice. It's what they can drink at the time, especially if you got someone who's dealing with a terminal illness or something that's just making it almost impossible
for them to get in the kitchen.
To juice. They don't have a clinician to come in and make juice for them. So we'll use something like the cold press juicer because it works really well as far as if you were going to freeze it or just serve it the next day. But the problem with the cold press juicer is there's no insoluble fiber left in the juice. So what does bacteria love to feed off? Sugar that is unencumbered. That means no medium. It's just like our guts. Our guts do not want insoluble fiber to block that sugar intake, right? So you remove that insoluble fiber and the bacteria feeds like crazy on that juice. And so when I used to do cold press juicing for companies, we'd actually find locations where we could go into cold storages and do the juicing in a room fully with HVAC, refrigerated, and we would even find machines that would run refrigerant through the cold press plates to be able to actually truly cold press. Because what a lot of people don't know is pressure destroys vital enzymes, destroys vital nutrients, especially volatile nutrients like vitamin C, and even more so like we talked about the oranges and the white pith. That's actually, bioflavonoid is just a broad term. It's actually nanoparticle vitamin C. It's the smaller molecule vitamin C that delivers the larger molecule vitamin C. So when you're doing cold juicing, you're effectively changing the sugar structure through enzymatic activity denaturing, but you're also destroying all the living plant stem cells by pulverizing the pulp rather than shredding it like a centrifugal juicer does. Now, when you press it as well, that pressure, just like a high-pressure pasteurization system, the way that you put them in those hyperbaric chambers that eventually use pressure to pasteurize it, and then you can bottle it and set it on a shelf for 30 days, that's also what the pressure is doing as well. So it might seem like you can store it, but what you're doing is you're effectively rendering a dead juice, and though it seems like you may be able to store it, if you've ever looked side by side between a cold pressed juice and a centrifugal processed juice, you'll see the centrifugal juice is orange, and the cold pressed juice starts turning brown within hours. And Linda, you've seen that personally.
Yeah.
With promoters of cold pressed juice.
So that's why we have to be able, we use the slow juicers for when we're, juicing for a lot of people. We can't afford to have anybody ever get sick, so.
Yeah, and we also use.
Do that ahead of time because it only operates at 30, 40 RPMs.
Oh, imagine. Yeah, 3 hours we spend in the mornings ahead of time, just to juice it. But what we like about the Hummingbird, which is so nice, is it does juice pulp free, which is really nice.
So what we tend to do is if we're going to store something for more than a day, we'll use the slow juicer, like the Nama, like the Kuvings, and we'll leave a little bit of that fiber in there. But the problem, Bonnie, Carly, is that when you use a slow juicer, it creates a phenomenon known as microfiber because it's not a cold press juicer. What happens is that blade that Linda was saying, that's not a masticator, it's actually a triturator. It triturates the fiber up against the screen of that slow juicer's filter, and it pushes out microfibers into the juice.
And why is that bad?
Microfibers feed bad bacteria inside the human gut. and the bad bacteria proliferate out those microfibers. They sit in pockets. People with diverticulitis or advanced forms of colitis or Crohn's will get bloated, or even people that have like SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, will have a hard time digesting those juices. But the most important thing that the microfiber does, and it's the most harmful thing, is it blocks nutrient uptake. And that's why you want to remove those fibers. So what we effectively do is we'll juice ahead of time. We'll store with a little bit of fiber by using a series of sieves and then bottling the juice. But then before service, I use a micron filter that is just like the micron filter you see here, right? To make sure that all that microfiber is taken out of the juice, so what we serve to the public has no insoluble fiber. But the soluble fiber is intact, but the juice is not in a living form. It is now denatured to amino acid. Now, amino acid juice is still good for you. It's a lot less work for the pancreas to create added enzymes to be able to digest the juice. But what we really want is a soluble fiber rich juice in order to be able to consume it quickly and have that enzymatic activity at the highest level, so that our body assimilates all the living sugars, all the living minerals, and all the living nutrients exactly how the body intends.
It's like we're teaching you guys already.
Go home and throw out everything in my bar and spend my life just drinking juice. I mean, you've convinced me on so many things that I had heard or read in your husband's book, and I just love how you shared it. And, you know, just to sum it up, and I think you already answered this question, but for buyers, you know, that are looking for, because our business is 99% commercial business. We have a few what we would call prosumers, professional consumers who want to have a commercial juicer just to make it live a long, long time. But if they're looking for a good commercial juicer and they care about consistency, speed, and this clean flavor and everything you're talking about with the nutrients, just sum up for us what type of juicer. And I think you've told this a few times, but I'll let you just...
If you're doing something in-house, you could still do the hummingbird. You could still do something like a cold press juicer. It's going to give you the most yield. But the problem is that people are going to have problems with blood sugar spiking, because you have pulverized every cell. You have eliminated the enzymatic activity that's going to help with the blood sugar spike. And so you're going to see a lot of people not have a great reaction to the juice. So the best way to do that is always offer a fresh juice. Have something like that juicer behind Carly there that can produce juice very quickly. What's great about those really powerful machines? Yes, those powerful machines are so great for loading the hopper with the exact recipe, then turning the machine on, rendering the juice quickly, serving it at like a bar setting. But if you're going to bottle, you could still do the cold press, but just know you really shouldn't be serving that juice for more than a day. Fruit, you might get away with like 3 days. But vegetable juices, Jay always said, cold press juices, they have to be served that day.
Yeah.
That's great to know. My goodness, I wish we could open this up and have people ask questions, because there's a whole bunch that I would like to, but in light of the time, I just want to thank both of you so much, Linda.
Oh, you're welcome.
For all of your knowledge, for taking the time to share this with us, that we then can help promote the things that people don't hear, the other side of juicing. But I also am very intrigued by, you were just sharing with us previously about a new juicing certification course that you are going to be offering. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, so that our listeners, it may be something that they would like to partake in as well.
Well, you know, Linda and Jay created juiceman.net. So you can easily go to juiceman.net.com. That's another story. It's something that...
we don't own that.
Yeah, we can't use that domain, but juicemania.net or juiceman.net.
Juicemania or juiceman.net.
It's the same website. Linda wanted to keep the Juice Man name alive, and she also started a company before I met her called Juice Mania, which was, it's a funny story. Tell them about the Jim Carrey story real quick.
Oh, real quick. No, Jim Carrey became a friend of Jay's. Well, actually, all the guys in Living Color, Keenan Ivory Wayans and Keenan and what was his
Damon Wayans.
Damon Wayans, yeah, and Jim. You know, they used to see our infomercial. You know, because it was just ran 11 years, night and day, forever. And so they wanted to do a spoof on it in living color. So Jim just did such an amazing job of imitating Jay. And they called it, Welcome to Juice Mania. And so I kind of had that thought once we lost the Juice Man trademark, which is another long story, I came up with this other name called Juice Mania. But interestingly, after 22 years, I was able to find the Juice Man name again on GoDaddy. But it's juiceman.net, and you'll be able to find the link there to be able to learn more about our board certified juicing course, and it's really, really wonderful. And it's sponsored by one of the greatest companies in the world. We love globalhealing.com. These people are just amazing teachers, great innovators, and we just love being teachers. I think that's really our calling. Carl and I love to teach,
and so you can see your passion in it for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
But on that actual link that's on the website is a free fasting webinar, so they can learn about juice fasting. Absolutely free. There's nothing they have to sign up for. They can go in and get some free materials. There's some things that we share for free there to help people get started on their juicing journey.
Yeah.
And then if they want to take it to the next level, then we do have different courses that are basically tiered out. So, it's not too much
money. And
money.
you're really going to learn. Yeah, exactly. It's very reasonable.
Yeah.
And you're really going to learn about what juice therapy really is, and instead of just sort of like floating in and out of YouTube videos, which, by the way, can be very helpful too and inspiring. But we want to keep, just as you do, we want to keep the legacy alive, and because these were the real teachings.
That's right. That's exactly right. And there was one more thing that you mentioned earlier about with your training. You had talked about helping people start juice bars. Did I hear you say something?
That's right.
Carl did.
That's
yes.
right. Yeah, a big draw for people when they do these classes is, I'm spending all this money. How can I make money off the money I'm spending? And so the first part is learning what the optimal way of juicing is, right? And offering that as a part of your business. But then you could still offer all the other things that juice bars have to offer: package deals, pre-made juice. There's ways to do that at an optimal level too. And eventually, even tier up to something like a retail business. But, we also help clinicians, people that have their own clinics who want to offer juicing as a modality and alternative therapy inside their practice. I mean, it's something that some of these late great teachers talked about, that really wanted people to gain knowledge enough to be able to be practitioners to offer it on a one-on-one basis. Because there's nothing, I mean, you guys know this. Linda loves going to, these spas and getting pampered. There's nothing like someone handing you something that you just get to imbibe, right? I worked in the restaurant industry for many years, and there was nothing like, after you've been preparing food all day, to have someone make you a plate of food. And it's the same thing with juicing. If you can lay back in some beautiful zero gravity chair and someone knocks out a fresh glass of juice for you, hands it to you, you can drink it right there, it's even going to be more healing.
So that's what he would do in Florida. He would go to these wealthy people's homes and bring them juices, for the day and the foods for the week.
Yeah.
Get them on a cleansing program.
You would help people that have things, as serious as cancer, HIV, really serious viruses that really there's not something to cure them of. But when they get these living foods in their body, it does amazing things. And there's studies that prove this, on a fruit and a vegetable level. But like Jay said, if you really want to unlock the power of these living fruits and vegetables, what better way than use juicing as the way to get there?
Exactly.
Well, I think we're going to see you guys around for another 50 years based on the lifestyle that you present. And we'll make sure to include all of that information about the juiceman.net and your course that you have coming up. We'll make sure to include that on the end of this. And again, we just feel so blessed. And thank you for taking the time to share your wealth of knowledge with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been really joyful to be a part of you guys today. And thank you. Anytime we're welcome. You're welcome to ask us any questions at any time.
Yeah, so
Thank you, Carly. And
we love and appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
We love you guys for doing what you do. It's very important to have the actual tools, the right tools, the place to go to get the right customer service, to get what you need when you're, taking on
a new venture.
A new venture like this. Yeah.
Check us out at Juicernet and profit while promoting health.